Black Ops 6 Zombies has more wasted potential than a used condom. All the ingredients were there, but they didn't know how to cook. So many returning elements from the previous games made by the previous team without an understanding of why it worked or how it fit into the overall package led us to what feels like an imitation of itself. There was a time when Treyarch were the clear-cut king of zombies, and the other studio attempts from Sledgehammer to Infinity Ward felt like a lesser knockoff. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't the real thing. And ever since Cold War, it's now Treyarch who have the zombie mode that feels inauthentic to what it once was. And let me be clear, this video will not be riding the waves of an internet hate train. This isn't going to be a back in my day speech. We're going to be presenting so much evidence they would have locked up OJ with this shit. We're going so deep, you're going to feel it inside your stomach. From design philosophy to map layouts, gameplay mechanics, attention to detail, overall presentation, we're going to dissect this frog down to its individual atoms. So let's start at the core, the gameplay itself, and the ever-increasing Warzonification of the Zombies experience. This began in Cold War, which I'll reference often because Black Ops 6 is just Cold War 2.0. They share the same faint, flickering soul and design principles, and with it we saw the introduction of armor, weapon rarity, and a minimap. Now, these were not very popular at the time, and I think most of us got used to it rather than learn to love it, and those are two very distinctly different things. So we begin with the first of these three additions, armor, which funny enough already existed in Sledgehammer Zombies, and that probably speaks to where Treyarch is right now. No longer the leader that everyone else borrows ideas from, but actually the opposite, taking unpopular ideas from what was nothing more than a Treyarch knockoff itself. Seems they're stuck in a feedback loop, much like their AI-generated calling cards. Now, the idea of armor, to me, just isn't a meaningful change to the formula, because we've essentially taken the health increase of Juggernog and split it in two. Now, if you want the full health increase, you have to go to two different machines instead of one. Before Cold War, all we had to do was go to the Jug machine. Now we gotta go to Jug and then also go to the armor wall buy. Does this really add value to the gameplay? I mean, I guess it helps you get your daily steps accounted for, having to run around the map. Maybe they're doing a pump and dump for stamina, I don't know. But that's not even the biggest issue with armor. What's worse is, we already had an armor mechanic in classic Zombies that was part of the iconic signature of Treyarch Zombies, the Zombie Shield. A core part of these games' personality that was one of many parts that made up its overall feel, which was then taken out and replaced with something that falls in line with Warzone, complete with the same animation of putting plates on. And this is going to be a constant theme in this video, where many of the changes the new zombie team made often replaces things that already existed, trading that signature feel for a more streamlined approach to fall in line with multiplayer. With the Zombie Shield, every map made you find the parts and build it. It was part of the gameplay loop that also doubled as a way of getting you to explore every inch of the map, something the mini-map runs counter to, but we'll get to that in a bit. Also, each shield was a unique design for each map to fit the aesthetic, but has now been ripped out and replaced with the streamlined Warzone armor vest, a one-size-fits-all that can be thrown onto every map without the extra work put in to make it fit the visual theming of each map. I mean, it's literally just a Kevlar vest ripped from the Warzone assets. Could have at least redesigned it for zombies. Barbed wire, bloodstains, go full on Mad Max in how it looks with spikes on the shoulder. Hell, if you wanted to rip an asset, the Warden of Alcatraz wears an armor vest that's already been redesigned for the zombie aesthetic. This work was already done, so not only did they not go the extra mile to zombify how it looks, they used a generic Warzone asset instead of something more fitting to use in a battle with zombies. Like, really, why the hell are you putting on a bulletproof vest to fight the undead? Are the zombies packing heat?
Not bad.
And if the design of a vest is a minor thing to you, then you better buckle in, because I've got 500 more of these. This is a repeating theme that infects the very DNA of modern zombies. They just don't put in that extra effort. We got one mystery box design for every map across 3 games instead of unique designs like the older games had. We got one trial machine instead of a unique one for each map, which is how it was before Cold War. Only one Pack-a-Punch design that is reused across 3 games over 5 years. Now, I don't want to just blindly hate. I'll give credit where it's due. The Cold War Pack-a-Punch is a great design. It's very well made, just like the SAM Trial Machine is a great design. But why are we still using the same design 10 maps later? Black Ops 2, 3, and 4 each had more than one Pack-a-Punch design, along with unique trial machines for every single map once the mechanic was introduced. But now we've gone 3 games over a 5-year stretch with one Pack-a-Punch design and one trial machine design. Is that truly the maximum level of effort? How can 10 years of progress lead to 10 steps taken backwards? We also only got one new perk in Black Ops 6, which was essentially a reskin of the Ethereal Razor perk from Black Ops 4. And if we go even deeper on this idea of unique assets, before Cold War Zombies, every map had a theme, and everything was fit to that theme. The HUD, the equipment, the zombie shield, the mechanics of the map itself. But now, you might get a new wonder weapon, if you're lucky, because not every map even has that anymore. Otherwise, it's a copy and paste of all existing mechanics and equipment from the previous map. There's no identity to the new zombie maps. You've played one, you played them all. Gorod Krovi, which predates Black Ops 6 by 10 years, had multiple wonder weapons, unique upgradable equipment instead of a soulless multiplayer kill streak, and that still wasn't enough because they also worked it into the design theming of the map. Instead of the same generic Hellstorm missile across every map, they made use of the dragons flying overhead to rain down fire. In functionality, no different from a multiplayer kill streak, but zombified to the highest degree to give you that mark of quality. Gorod Krovi also had unique traps, a unique field upgrade with multiple functions, and it was upgradable. Unique trials with a unique presentation for them, a unique shield. It's just endless love put into it, rather than coming up with standardized gear spread across every map, made worse by most of it not looking like it belongs in Zombies to begin with. If you keep stripping away all the small things that help build the overall vibe, then what do you have? Just the basic core mechanics without the soul of the original, which is why Cold War era Zombies feels like it's made by one of the other studios, because the signature feel of Treyarch Zombies, that fleshed out identity that each map was given, has been streamlined out of the experience. And I mentioned this before, but it bears repeating. Old Zombies, when shown on the roadmap, were called a new Zombies experience, and now it's merely called a new map. Even the marketing team knows they can't hype this shit up the same. Now, getting back to the Warzonification of Zombies is weapon rarity, another mechanic taken straight from Warzone and shoehorned into Zombies without much grace. Because again, they didn't zombify it at all, it's just Warzone gear rarity that looks wildly out of place. Nothing says Zombies like getting epic loot from the mystery box. No attempt is made at fitting it into the zombie vibe, and that is a problem, because in the past, sure, they absolutely took things right from multiplayer, but they always dressed it up so it didn't feel out of place. The zombie shield was literally just the riot shield from multiplayer, but they redesigned it for zombies, added gimmicks like the rocket boost or unique projectiles, and just a totally fresh coat of paint to fit whatever that particular map's theme was. There was no attempt to dress up weapon rarity as something that should be in Zombies, just like there was no attempt to dress up armor to make it look the part. And speaking of armor, they did the exact same thing with rarity, which was splitting an existing mechanic into 2 different machines. What was once all done at the Pack-a-Punch machine now requires visiting an additional machine to achieve the exact same thing, because you also need to visit the arsenal to get the second half of your damage increase. What is the value in doing this? It gives the illusion of a new mechanic and a freshened up gameplay loop, but that's all it is. A trick without any real substance. What's the point? Well, I'll tell you the point. Treyarch got a directive from up top telling them, we want these Warzone mechanics put into Zombies to bring a sense of familiarity from our most popular mode over to the zombie side. Weapon rarity and armor plates. Go make it work. And that's why you have the arsenal and armor vest when those mechanics already existed in the game and they were already built to fit neatly into the feel of zombies, but now we get something that doesn't feel well thought out or well executed. Another piece of its soul gets extinguished for the sake of synergy. And finally, we have the mini-map, and man does this thing stick out like a sore thumb. Now mechanically, I do like it because it shows you where the perks are, shows you where the zombies are. I feel like there is value added, but they made zero attempts at fitting it into the zombie aesthetic. And I don't understand why, because since Black Ops 2, we've had unique HUDs for all of the zombie maps. You're telling me their team couldn't fire up the AI machine and tell it to zombify the design of the minimap? Hell, they could even train the AI on all the previous unique zombie HUDs they made, but they weren't even willing to do that, which is very telling, because it means they went out of their way to make sure it looked similar to Warzone. This isn't merely a quality of life upgrade, it was meant to bring zombies closer to multiplayer. They never wanted it to look different. Now in Black Ops 7, we finally get a new HUD for zombies, but really, it's the same HUD as multiplayer in a different color. And you know why? Because creating a unique HUD for zombies means having to re-script all of the HUD elements like the ammo counter and grenade counter so they work with the new design, and zombies just doesn't get that level of effort anymore. That's why the most you would ever get is something that doesn't require anything but superficial changes in look. Nothing but reskins that fit snugly inside the existing framework. And honestly, why stop here? We could keep going on the subject of Warzone's infusion into zombies because we haven't even mentioned the exfil yet. Now, truth be told, having a way to end the game has been the most requested feature since Black Ops 1, but again, there was no attempt to zombify it aesthetically or mechanically. It's the same pre-canned animation and presentation as winning a game on Battle Royale. Not to mention, why are we using terms like exfil to begin with? Why are we getting into military helicopters? Why do zombies want so bad to be like the campaign when it was such a distinct flavor up until Cold War? Something that was always fresh is now creatively bankrupt while being bankrolled by dollar a dozen ideas. And even if Black Ops 7 has addressed this by making it a portal, should it really take 5 years of zombie maps and development time for them to think, hey, maybe that looks out of place? And just to talk about that for 1 second, I've only played the beta as of the time of writing this, but exfil in 7 seemed very undercooked. Nothing actually comes out of the portal other than a little ball of light, and once you're done, you click on it and it smash cuts to a game over screen. It felt completely thrown together. In my head, I'm picturing an Avengers Doctor Strange portal that grows in size as more and more zombies pour out of it. But what we got feels unfinished, and maybe it is since it was the beta. But we're not talking about 7. And fixing the faults of a game in its $70 sequel does not ease the mind of people who already spent $70 and a year of their time on the lesser version of the same thing. And at this current pace of slowly fixing things, by the time they get it up to par with Black Ops 3, arthritis will have withered away my ability to hold the controller. I'm getting old, Treyarch. I need zombies to be good again before my hip gives out. And finally, I promise, this is the very last thing I'll speak on regarding the Warzonification, but it's a big one, so we can't leave it out. Climbing. Now, this is an interesting one because I actually like its inclusion in zombies. Not so much in grief, but I do like it in survival. Problem is, do I like it for the right reasons? Because I also like sugar. That doesn't mean it's a good thing. Mantling is such a huge quality of life change, it's hard to play old zombies without it, but it kind of feels like it might be a case of you shouldn't have let the genie out of the bottle to begin with. Because being able to climb everything is one of the many reasons why every new zombie map plays exactly the same, because they have no ability to funnel you through any specific area. It's open world free roam zombies. Every single map plays out the same way because they all share the same mechanics. The new maps are severely lacking in clutter, which not only makes them look bland, but also being able to climb what little clutter there is makes every map play out in a similar fashion. At the very least, if they're going to add such a game-changing mechanic, then design the maps around that mechanic so each one has its own feel, which is how they always did it in the past, but they don't do that now. There are no areas on any map that can only be accessible by climbing. Hell, Mob of the Dead almost 15 years ago had a spot that can only be accessed via climbing, and climbing is not even a function of that game. So tell me why in the new game, where climbing is actually a thing, they didn't go wild designing maps around it. We really could keep going. I haven't even mentioned how we used to get organic in-game hints on what to do next. That was then replaced with bland campaign-style objectives to hold your hand and clutter the screen to kill whatever immersion still remained. They also split one currency into two, like we're playing a fucking MMO. Okay, one more twist to the knife. If you stream on Twitch, it labels Black Ops 6 Zombies as Warzone. I'm not joking either. How much more on the nose could it be? Moving past Warzone Zombies, let's talk about the layouts of the new maps. I'm gonna give you a couple examples to highlight the lack of a cohesive vision. The maps feel like different teams made different rooms and then tried to fuse them all together. I've mentioned it many times. Every map starting with Cold War is just big, empty rooms. Endless negative space that just doesn't look good visually. It's a very dated look for a modern video game to not have any clutter to fill the visual space. But another problem is the actual layout itself. And we're gonna look at Citadel for this. Starting with the spawn room, we have two branching paths, one left and one right. Not that out of the ordinary. Many zombie maps do this, but they both lead to the same area, which is the part that doesn't make sense. Shangri-La also has branching paths from spawn, but they both take you all the way around the map, a logical loop. Ascension is another map with branching paths from spawn, and they both take you to different parts of the map that then organically connect together later. And many more classic zombie maps do the same, but Citadel is one of the only maps I can think of that has branching paths from spawn that A, have nothing there other than a perk machine, and B, dump you right back at the same location that then leads you out to the rest of the map. This isn't a logical map layout, it's a padding to the overall size and brings no real value. What's worse is they aren't even interesting points of interest. Maybe we could forgive this spork in the road if there was a reason to stick around and look at the detailed visuals, but we don't have that. We have this. The infamous, legendary, concrete motherfucking slab. I will go to my grave wondering what in the fuck this is. It's just a big, flat concrete slab. There's nothing here, no clutter, not even visual nuance on the texture itself. It just looks unfinished. And continuing on with strange layout decisions, we go inside the world's smallest castle, because it's basically just this room. And upstairs, we have two branching paths again. One leads us to a dead end, which is kind of strange, or we can go down this equally strange, twisting tunnel that spits you out into this room. What the fuck is this tunnel? Why is it curved? And why is it even a tunnel to begin with? Why would you build a curved tunnel on the second floor of a castle? There's only one reason, because they built these rooms in pieces and had no clue how to fit that courtyard to the main room in any logical way that felt organic. And this is not about being realistic to real life. Drak, the map, is nothing like the real castle. Many creative liberties were taken to make it look even more incredible than the real one. This here is simply not a well thought out connection between rooms. They're building without a blueprint. Well, let's get Zombies back up the code, please. And the reason I single out Citadel is because it's what a lot of people consider the best map on the game, and yet visually, it's very bland outside of one area, the castle entrance, which is a very well-made area, both visually and in its layout, for the most part. We still have these side rooms that are a basic square box with empty walls featuring a repeated texture and zero clutter. I do think the entrance area is well made, but rooms like this just scream low effort. This room does not inspire thoughts of a castle wall. And there is countless other head-scratching areas on other maps that are either dead ends or have absolutely nothing in them, making you wonder why it's even there to begin with. And this could be forgiven in older Zombies when it happened, since such love went into the art direction to ensure everything shined. Unfortunately, Black Ops 6 leaves us in the dark, and maybe that's why you can't see shit in this room. They're trying to hide just how fucking empty it is. And speaking of darkness and the older game's ability to fill in its visual space, I'm not gonna pretend they don't also have big empty rooms as well, but there's a key difference, and I'll use Blood of the Dead to show you what I mean. Here we got a wide, empty tunnel. Black Ops 6 is loaded with places just like this, and yet this is far more cinematic. It doesn't feel like it's empty. There's a couple reasons. One is much more dramatic lighting and atmosphere layered over top. But another thing to notice is the shadows being cast from above. They're painting the texture with light to give the illusion of a more filled-in space. This right here is actual art direction. Stories can be told and moods can be set purely with the placement of a shadow. The Blundell boys were chasing Spielberg, and the new team is on some Michael Bay shit, hiding the lack of meaning with clear and obvious stuff that you just can't miss. I have this uncanny ability to sound like I know what I'm talking about when in reality, I don't know what the fuck I'm saying. I'm just putting words together and praying I'm coherent. If you love these new maps, fair enough. I'm just holding them to the standard they set in their previous games, which I think is also fair. Origins tried to blow your mind. Now they just want to blow open your wallet. And if you want proof of that statement, Black Ops 3 provided us with the cookbook, which allowed you to trade lesser gobblegums for max rarity ones, including the coveted Perkaholic, for free. Now, your only way to obtain the specific one that you want is through absurdly priced gobblegum packs. If we're talking new era zombie maps, we have to talk about the abundance of negative space. We talked about the infamous concrete slab of legend, but really, it's room after room after room, boring, bland, empty, nothing eye-catching, nothing worth looking at, no clutter. It's just a place to pass through on your way to the next machine, of which there are many, because, as we noted before, they split all the existing machines into many more redundant ones, and I guess that is in the spirit of old zombies, make that shit super convoluted for absolutely no reason. The Blundell special, baby. I mean, come on, this is Treyarch Zombies? The spectacle of origins and ancient evil has been reduced to what looks like a level they cut from Half-Life 25 years ago. TikTok said we're done with the 90s, so why's the Liberty Falls Bank look like Duke Nukem 3D with 4K textures and ray tracing? Minimal clutter and basic lighting that casts no interesting shadows into the play space, which could at least mask the emptiness. Pre-Cold War, the maps were so dense with detail, you could just get lost in the incredible art design of every individual room. There's so much to stop and look at, small bits of detail in the most mundane of places, and now, other than a few broad strokes best enjoyed at a distance, there just isn't anything worth your time to stop and gawk. Now, you could say who cares? It's zombies. I'm on the run. I can't stand around to look at stuff. And that right there is the problem. Before Cold War, they went the extra mile in terms of seeding the maps with lush detail. Every room, every wall, every texture, whether you noticed it or not, it was there. They don't bother doing that at anywhere near the same level anymore, and that shows a lack of passion put forth. Because that's where passion is found, in the small details most would miss, but you do it anyway because you're invested in the art that you're creating. Rooms like this, with absolutely nothing in them, are everywhere. I told you, they're trying to hide how empty it is with poor lighting, but considering all the other rooms on this map are also empty, I think the secret is out. The more you go over these maps, the more you start to notice a pattern emerge. It's almost as if everything is double wide. Doors are always double doors. Every hallway is so wide you could drive a truck through it. Everything is stretched out more than Riley Reid's vaginal walls, and it really is not about adding Shangri-La style choke points for the sake of difficulty, because honestly, the game could be made easier and more casual friendly, that's fine. I really don't care either way. It's more about filling in the visual space so that the maps don't look Bush League. And no, that was not a second Riley Reid joke. There's just such a drop-off from Black Ops 4 to Cold War in terms of visuals. It's a sharp drop that seemingly happened overnight when Jason Blundell left, and it hasn't returned since. They also lost the concept artist for Origins and the director for Buried, two maps with incredible commitment to their aesthetic. I'm sure that doesn't help either. And let me be crystal clear, I'm not saying these new maps look bad, just bland. There's no big creative ideas. They play it safe at every turn. But there's still a nice overall look to the new maps. These are critiques, not hate, and there's a big difference between the two. I've had a lot of fun with Black Ops 6 Zombies, but I want slow and memorable instead of fast and forgettable. 6 is just a one-night stand. The problem with these maps are the blown-out proportions, like they built this shit for Zion Williamson. Apparently, he's a big zombie fan and was tired of getting stuck in the doorways, so now they're all double doors. I've said it many times, if you trim the fat, no pun intended, these maps could stand up with the originals. As it stands, they're bare bones, but could look so much better if every room wasn't made to the specifications of Nephilim. Filling in areas with clutter makes the space look lived in and gives it visual appeal. Empty rooms are not exciting. It also helps tell a story of how things came to be how they are now. And honestly, it's just the expectation of a modern AAA game. And the lack of effort sticks out even more if we take a second to point out that there are outside, non-playable areas of the old maps that are more filled in and sprawling with detail than the actual in-game playable areas of Black Ops 6. That's fucked up, son. I just know you're hoping I lose my voice soon, so I shut up already. Nope. I got that Jehovah's Witness stamina. I'm knocking on your door to spread the zombie gospel. Going further up into the visuals, what is a big component of Treyarch Zombies' signature look? The Skybox. Something they seem to finally be brushing up on in 7, but again, we're not talking about 7. We're talking about Black Ops 6, the game with the longest development cycle in Call of Duty history. Now, the Skybox is the texture wrapped around the entire map, and man, did we get some legendary ones before Cold War came and set us back to the actual Cold War. One thing you could always count on, if nothing else, from Treyarch Zombies is it was gonna be a goddamn visual feast, any and everywhere you looked, and that includes up. But what we get now is corner cutting to the detriment of the quality, and we're gonna prove that by comparing the Revelation Skybox with the Tomb Skybox. Now, what you first notice is the old one is a lot more flashy, but it's not always about flash. So beyond it being a better composition, I want to talk about how they went the extra mile of making sure all the space debris were 3D models. The biggest reason the Tomb Skybox looks so flat is because it is flat. Most of the space debris are baked into the texture itself, so there's no parallaxing. Those rocks deep in space are just painted onto the texture itself, which I think is insane. In Revelations, every single rock floating above your head is actually there. So it's affected by the lighting, it properly parallaxes as you move, and it's why the Tomb Skybox looks bland in comparison. I can't really think of many games that would bake asteroids into the sky texture itself, probably because it looks fucking horrible. And worse yet, it has a knock-on effect because the space rocks that are closer are 3D models, so now we have a mixture of some that are 3D with proper lighting and some unaffected by the lighting baked into the texture, and it looks terrible. It makes the 3D rocks look even more out of place. They just don't look like they should be up there. So you have these handful of rocks right up close and the rest of them a Buzz Lightyear away with an empty chasm in between. It's just not an appealing composition to look at. And if you want the hard truth of why things like this happen, most players just don't care about the technical side of things, so why put in the extra work if no one's gonna call it out? And like I said before, that's where passion enters the fray. A passionate person goes the extra mile, polishing to a level of perfection only they themselves could even notice. That's a real artist, not just throwing rocks in the sky and asking for $70. This is why I said in a previous video, they seemingly follow a checklist of all the things that previous zombie games did, but they don't seem to understand why they looked good in the original. They're trying to jam together pieces that don't fit until finally deciding to just draw over the original puzzle. I also feel like we gotta point some attention toward the promise from Treyarch to make every map on Black Ops 6 original. How far have we sunk that that would even need to be mentioned at all? It used to be the expectation, and now originality requires an announcement. Let that sink in a bit. Let me give you another example of them changing something for the better at the cost of losing some of the signature feel. Ammo crates. Objectively, a great change, just like climbing was, but once you make this change, there's no going back. and that shows a lack of understanding classic Zombies, not knowing the ramifications of how it alters the gameplay loop in a way that loses a small piece of its identity. And in my own opinion, this one strips away a large part of its identity. Because a big part of Treyarch Zombies is sweating it out for that next ammo round. And now the ammo rounds and the iconic max ammo itself just don't mean much anymore. And that's why you don't tinker with things for the sake of quality of life upgrades without looking at it from all angles. Because ammo crates are an upgrade at the cost of identity. And it's a small one. We all love being able to buy ammo for any weapon at any time, but I'll be damned if it just doesn't feel like I'm playing Treyarch Zombies. It feels like I'm playing zombies built by one of the other studios. It can't be Treyarch. They wouldn't give us a feast without flavor. Hearing "Fetch me their souls" was like hearing the voice of God personally delivering you a gift. Now it's an obsolete leftover from older games that really doesn't even make sense now. Explain to me why we even have ammo rounds anymore. They're pointless. They're only there because the old games had them. There's no excitement over an ammo round these days. If anything, most players find them annoying now. You've conditioned us for the ammo crate, so when that ammo round comes up, you just want to get it over with, since the reward isn't a reward anymore. The tension of running low on ammo just doesn't exist now. And like most newly introduced mechanics, they didn't bother dressing up the crate for zombies, just more militarized Warzone assets slapped into zombies without any care. If you're still here and haven't fallen asleep yet, congratulations. TikTok has not yet fried your attention span. Anyway, most of the things I've mentioned so far are small changes, but too many small changes gives us the ship of Theseus. Is it really Treyarch Zombies anymore? Here's another way to look at it. If you can buy ammo on demand at any time, do you really feel like you're trying to survive a zombie apocalypse? Because it feels more like it's the zombies that have to survive you on your terms, and your only threat that remains is boredom. This lack of understanding the older games, it even seeps into the marketing itself. Let's talk about how the decade-long anticipated return of a fan-favorite perk, Double Tap, was just another throw-in for the seasonal blog post on CallOfDuty.com. Not treated like a big deal, not extensively teased, just here it is, who the fuck cares? Well, if the development team had a proper connection with zombies, they would know the return of Double Tap is gigantic, and they should have rolled the red carpet out for it. When the Warzone boys got the return of Verdansk, it was treated like the main event of WrestleMania. Just all-out marketing and teasing it for ages, and maybe you don't think that's a fair comparison because that's Warzone, more players, more marketing budget. This is just a stupid perk. Look, I'm not saying it has to be treated to that high of a level, but giving Double Tap the same level of respect as Death Perception? That's a joke. And let's not forget all the pre-release hype for Black Ops 6 was filled with little nods to Black Ops 3. They really wanted you to be gaslit into thinking this new Zombies mode was inspired by everybody's favorite Black Ops 3. And yet they don't think Double Tap means something to a zombie veteran? That shows you it's just empty, meaningless marketing. They do not respect the source material. They just rip a 3D model from one of the old maps every now and then to throw you a bone, but it lacks that connection to why the original mattered. Black Ops 6 Zombies feels like the last season of Game of Thrones. We'd gone off book, and this is the result. This is the same team that did a reimagined Transit without including town or the bus. Literally the two most iconic aspects of that map. And my beloved Grief suffered the same fate. Now, since I've covered Grief very extensively in a million other videos, I'll try and keep it short, but no promises. This is where my own passion shines through. So, there was an interview before Vanguard Zombies came out where GameSpot asked about Grief, and the zombie team said, and I quote, "A lot of people on the team love it." Well, let's see what these big fans of Grief did with its rollout. The first trailer for the 13-year long-awaited return of Grief featured zero griefing. It was so poorly done that even us veteran griefers were speculating if the indirect PvP even existed. That's like giving you a multiplayer trailer without any shooting in it. It's just not the kind of mistake a big fan of Grief would make. Then, they had some guy I've never even heard of, with a bajillion subs named Noah, put out an hour of footage the day before release that also featured zero use of the indirect PvP. You know, the entire purpose of the mode. We really had no clue if it was even gonna be a thing. A person with absolutely no connection to any fragment of the Grief community is who you send to showcase its gameplay. This is like boarding the Hindenburg with a lit cigarette. It's a disaster waiting to happen. And then when release did come, where were the leaderboards to track your wins? Where were the private lobbies to set up tournaments and build up a competitive scene? Just basic, mundane features every video game since the original Nintendo has, which also includes the original Grief, but now these features are all missing. And let's focus on the lack of leaderboards for a second. A multiplayer game without leaderboards is unheard of levels of laziness. Make a list for me of multiplayer games from the last 20 years that don't have some form of leaderboard. It's a very short list, and Black Ops 6 Grief would be the headliner. What exactly are we playing for? Fun? Okay, I could give you that. Here's the issue. Grief is a highly competitive PvP game, and they underestimated how much the wins and losses mean to players, and that shows you're dealing with a team that's out of touch with its players. Grief is not Prop Hunt, it's not a throw-in party game, but that was the level of respect that was given. And shit, man, Prop Hunt still tracks your wins. How many times are they gonna kick us while we're down? Black Ops 2, almost 15 years ago, had private lobbies filled with options you could change. Then came Black Ops 4, which was the ultimate evolution of that, with an insane amount of changeable options that you could practically make your own game mode. Then, the very next game, which was Cold War, they removed all options for private lobbies, and they haven't returned since. Forget evolution, we don't even have parity with games from over a decade ago. And I also gotta bring this one up again. The icon they used for Grief on the main page of the game featured a guy holding a Wonder Waft, which you can't even fucking use in Grief. How am I supposed to feel like you care and are such big fans when making such sloppy mistakes? How about the now infamous Master of Grief event that wanted you to kill zombies? Not grief people down, just kill zombies. And worse yet, it rewarded first place with a timeout gobblegum that isn't even usable in Grief. Just no respect shown to Grief at any point in time. But it keeps getting worse. These supposed big fans of Grief had the audacity to leave a dev note on CallOfDuty.com to give reason for a change made in a patch by saying they didn't want melee to be the meta in Grief. Would these guys outlaw bullets from multiplayer? Because that would be essentially the same thing. How can a big fan be so far out of touch to not even know the basics of what Grief is? Hitting people with melee is the alpha and omega of the Grief experience. It's everything. This is like how the new owner of the Mavericks had no idea what the NBA Finals are called while he's trying to sell people on how much he cares about the team. It's just so tone deaf, even Beethoven couldn't fix it. Alright, back to map design. Before I get too triggered by how they handled Grief, it's not good for my blood pressure. Conceptually, can we agree that Reckoning's closest comparison is Die Rise? Both maps feature two skyscrapers that you can move between and make use of verticality. Now, in the previous era of Zombies, when they had an idea, they fully fleshed it out, exploring all gameplay avenues possible for it. In Reckoning, there is a single jump that truly makes use of the map's verticality, and it could not be any more obvious and in your face. Meanwhile, Die Rise has countless shortcut jumps that organically fit into the overall design of the map, and being a skyscraper, they work this verticality into everything. There is so much depth and layering to the playable area. This destroyed elevator shaft was made as a way to get to the lower level instead of just boring stairs. And the elevators themselves are used as an organic fast travel system, making use of the theme of the map being a skyscraper. They also add a layer of strategy and personality to buying perks on top of that. And now our means of traversing between buildings on Reckoning is an on-rails, no-thrills jump pad. Die Rise isn't everyone's cup of tea, but I hope we could at least agree it has very impressive level design that you would never expect in a survival game, and really makes the newer maps look so basic in comparison. And the other side of verticality is terrain deformation, where they sculpt the dirt like a piece of clay to create a more personalized play space. It lets you know these are not assets slapped onto a slab of cement, but high poly geometry somebody had the shape so you could reach elevated areas naturally. My best example, and I've given it before, the Liberty Falls Church is a stock asset sitting on a slab of cement. Meanwhile, Origins, which came out just shy of 15 years before it, is torn apart brick by brick to work it into the uneven ground. But talking specifically about uneven terrain that is more than a microscopic molehill, outside of a single area of the tomb and a small part of Terminus, there is very little handcrafted terrain in all of 6. Instead, there's an over-reliance on stairs, zip lines, and elevators to fill out its level design. Zetsubo from 10 years prior is an entire map, and it's a big map, where the majority of the ground is dirt that is molded into something that achieves verticality the old-fashioned way. Revelations is another, full of large segments of its map where the terrain isn't just a few bumps here and there like Citadel, but large elevation changes that require immense amounts of work, which is why we get stairs and elevators more often than not in Black Ops 6. I really take that saying, the devil works harder, to new heights, cause goddamn, we're going in on this bitch. I didn't even try this hard in school. Explains a lot, right? Old Zombies stayed true to its visual theme throughout every room, but now we get things like Reckoning, where one room looks incredible and the next looks terrible. I mean, sure, this room right here looks fucking amazing. Similar stylistic choices to Zetsubo. But why the hell is it only one room? Which is honestly, to my personal taste, the only interesting looking room across the entirety of Reckoning. They won't commit to that level of detail and effort for an entire map, and it's frustrating for long-term fans that have been spoiled with 10 years of out-of-this-world ideas brought to life. The new zombie team needs to take some advice from Captain Charisma. You still with me so far? The Adderall should be kicking in by now, so you should be good to go while I ramble on a bit more. Fast travel could be its own discussion, because Blood of the Dead also has an on-rails fast travel, but unlike Reckoning, they went the extra mile, if not the extra light year, and built an entire size of the map, lava cavern, rich with detail, when it could have just been a basic animation. This isn't even a playable area, and they put so much work into it. What about Ascension's fast travel? Landers that follow through with the theming of the map and give you a nice bird's eye view of everything. The Reckoning fast travel doesn't even let you look left or right. Is that so they didn't have to design any nice looking points of interest outside of the map? Or is it because they don't want you to see what they did design outside of the map? Now, the Ascension landers also double as a way to activate Pack-a-Punch. Not only did they work it into the theme of the map, but also the mechanics of the game itself. And it's done in a way that's organic. That is putting real thought into something. Meanwhile, Citadel gets this goofy, limp-ass cannon to launch you such a short distance, you could have ran it with stamina. Now, I know what you're saying. There's another fast travel system on Citadel that takes you across the entire map, the Sewer Slide. But Zetsubo already did this idea 10 years prior with more detail put into the tunnel, and it actually looks like it belongs on the map, unlike the Citadel sewer that's just kind of there on a random wall and spits you out at spawn. While Zetsubo's entrance to the tunnel is built into the existing structure to look like it belongs and spits you out into a small body of water that then leads out into a cool-looking swamp. Logical and fitting parts they put together seamlessly. Liberty Falls fast travel consists of zip lines pulled straight from Warzone. Why not dress them up as dark ether vortexes to make it more fitting and feel like real effort was put forth? Zetsubo has a zip line, but it's been dressed up for zombies, and again, they work the mechanics in because you can use the Bowie knife to cut it as part of the Easter egg. The Shattered Veil fast travel is just a recolor of the wormhole from Firebase Z. Why not do something creative that interacts with the design of the map? And look, I don't want to hear you say Shadows of Evil had the same kind of wormhole transition for its fast travel, because it also had a monorail that fit into the look and layout of the map, not just the Windows 98 screensaver animation. We have the power of ray tracing now. They could have modeled a 3D wormhole that reflects light onto the player as they travel through it in real time instead of this compressed-ass MP4. Because keep in mind, it's not just about reaching parity of the older games that are over a decade old. We are in the distant future of tomorrow. They should be going batshit crazy with the new zombie maps. Treyarch Zombies has been on a worse downward slide than crypto. Looks like we all bought at the peak of Black Ops 3, in more ways than one. What about the time-limited modes they love to put out? Now, I feel like I've been fair so far. Reasonable critiques, never blind hate. I haven't said, oh, this is garbage. But for this specific section, we are gonna get a touch harsh. Shield your ears because we're gonna dare to get a PG rating. Cold War Zombies got survival reskinned with Santa hats. Black Ops 6 got survival reskinned with pumpkin heads. We also got Cranked 1 and 2. There was also that Outbreak one where you had to eat food. What in the fuck is this uninspired bullshit? Why waste valuable dev time on slop? Just low-effort throwaway modes that 3 people will play and never touch ever again just to tick the box on the seasonal roadmap to say, hey look, Zombies got new content. This is the reason zombie players feel like second-class citizens. Not all content is created equal. These low-effort, time-limited modes they put in Zombies do not qualify as value added to the overall package. If anything, they're value subtracted, because it's a big slap in the face to remind you just how far down the totem pole you are as a zombie player. And regardless of the lack of quality, why are they time limited to begin with? To keep from spreading the players too thin? But they keep telling us Zombies has more players than ever, so which is it? By the very nature of it being time limited tells you all you need to know. It's not something they feel is high enough quality to stick around. So why even do it to begin with? Spend that week filling in all these empty rooms instead. Another crucial piece of the Treyarch Zombies identity is the presentation. From unique menus to unique HUDs, loading into Zombies used to feel like you were loading into an entirely different game, with creative atmospheric designs for the menu instead of the soulless Warzone reskin we've had since Cold War. The Black Ops 2 map selection is super creative, and it even works your Easter egg progress into it. Just extra layer after extra layer of detail. They really thought about everything from all angles. You also had characters that weren't limited to generic military jargon, but instead had larger-than-life personalities. Even little things like the fade in from black at the start of the game, which is another thing 7 is bringing back. But if it takes 5 years to program a fade to black, they might want to upgrade those workstations off of Windows XP. The overall presentation of modern Zombies only provides you with the bare minimum, and we can keep listing off examples. How about the fact we used to get hand-drawn artwork for the loading screens? Real work put into making comic book versions of the maps. It also helped fill in the atmosphere of Zombies. It was part of the package of what you expected. And now, we get low-effort, in-game screenshots that functionally use the exact same template as multiplayer does, more streamlining at the cost of presentation. And it doesn't end there. Older Zombies had creative animated door buying sequences, so much effort put into merely opening a fucking door. Either it's passion or insanity, but I love it either way. But they even went further than that, and depending on the map, would add particle effects to match that map's style. And now, every door is literally just that, a door. Really flexing the animator's ability these days. We went from Lovecraftian-inspired visual spectacles to generic towns without ambiance. The groans of the zombies may just be their thoughts on their surroundings. How did we go from mythology brought to life to lifeless realism? Ancient Evil, Shadows of Evil, Origins, Mob of the Dead, Moon. It's just one big idea brought to life in all its detailed glory after another. And now, it's Liberty Falls, Die Machine, Tomb. Basic lighting setups, bland textures without extra love put into them to make them look distressed and nuanced. Empty areas devoid of clutter. It just isn't in the same stratosphere as what came before it. The heavy influence of military theming on all aspects of Zombies is not a vibe with enough gravity to pull you into its orbit. Why do I care about run-of-the-mill campaign-style safe-for-everybody artistic choices? I'm fucking killing it with these romance novel kind of metaphors, bro. You need some cheesy dialogue for your soap opera? I'm one call away. Treyarch Zombies was a cinematic spectacle that demanded your attention, and what we get now is background noise for grinding weapon camos. When Cold War Zombies came out, we were all underwhelmed, but we told ourselves they just didn't have enough time. When Vanguard sunk Zombies to a new low, we told ourselves if they just had more time, it could return to its former glory. When Modern Warfare Zombies came out, we all said, well, they had to rush it, so they only had the B team working on it. Then Black Ops 6 comes along with the longest development cycle of any Call of Duty in history, and all the issues of the previous 3 games still remained. How much more time do they need? 5 years? 10 years? We have to come to terms with the fact they can no longer provide that high level of quality anymore. Look, I would never talk bad on people just doing their job, and that's not what this is meant to be. But we can't ignore how many negative tropes and signs of lower effort that emerged with the release of Cold War and have continued to permeate through Zombies, including the removal of theater for the zombie side, the iconic window boards being taken down for good, singular themes that are fully fleshed out for each map no longer being the standard, basic features like customizable options in private lobbies and extensive stat tracking, all missing. Endlessly reused assets like using the same special zombie on every single map. No super Easter egg like the previous games, which, by the way, is something they're only thinking about doing for Black Ops 7. Well, considering the amount of thought they put into what we do get, I wouldn't take the over on that one. Pack-a-punch camos that are so ugly and low effort, we're thankful for the option to turn them off. And you know how I know the Liberty Falls camo is terrible? Because clickbait incarnate himself, Mr. Waffles, used a completely different camo in the thumbnail for his Liberty Falls Pack-a-Punch video than the one that you actually get. That is absolutely hilarious. Also, if you're one of the 100,000 people that needed to watch a video explaining that, you just walk up to it and press X. May God have mercy on your soul. Anyway, there's just so many bits and pieces of the Treyarch Zombies experience that form its personality, ripped out at the inception of Cold War to never return in 6. And you have to wonder why the downgrade. They have more time, they have more money, Zombies should be even more expansive and immersive, and yet we don't even have parity with decade-old games. There's a lot of things money can buy, but some things can't be replaced. An artistic vision, along with the passion to see it through, is one of them. That's what Jason Blundell brought to the team, and what New Zombies sorely misses. When he and his team left, the bright blue glowing soul of Zombies went with it. Now, make no mistake, I am not a Jason Blundell fanboy. I think when it comes to making zombie maps and general atmosphere, he's one of one. Best talent they ever had. But when it comes to gameplay, I do disagree with a lot of his choices, but gameplay was never an issue. It wasn't back then, and it still isn't now. The core loop is largely the same, and the fun levels are fairly similar. But the mark of quality that used to stick with you long after you finished a round has long been extinguished. A 5-star meal and a McDonald's Happy Meal both leave you feeling full and satisfy your hunger, but you would never put the two on the same level, even if they achieve the same goal. Modern Zombies has gone the way of fast food to satisfy a faster-moving society that no longer cares about the time-consuming small details, as long as all the broad strokes still splash the canvas. Well, you made it through. You have now earned your university doctorate from this lengthy lecture of bullshit. With the release of Black Ops 7, I hope for both of our sake it's good, so you don't gotta sit through one of these again a year from now. Man, this shit was long. What's crazy to me is that Noah video about Black Ops 6 Grief was still longer than this. How the hell does someone talk for 60 minutes about something they know nothing about? That is a professional YouTuber right there. Certified yapper that can stretch that shit out to get as much watch time as possible on your video. Kinda like what I'm doing right now. Just milking a few more seconds of watch time for the algorithm.